Here is where we gather in the presence of the sacred. Here is where we gather to experience the holy. Here is where together we face the unanswerable questions and acknowledge that not knowing is as sublime as it is frustrating. Here is where we unite in the midst of our life and all the glories and suffering it can hold, knowing both are ever present. Here is where we ask, think, risk, discuss, ponder, and offer what might be welcomed or even acceptable somewhere else. Here we gather to worship, to experience something, perhaps something different for each of us according to our beliefs. Here we are so gathered, our minds, our hearts, and our souls, and so our worship begins.
The Librarian of Basra, a true story from Iraq. And I'll give you a chance to see some pictures here. By Jeanette Winter. In the Quran, the first thing God said to Muhammad was, read. Aliyah Muhammad Baker from the New York Times, July 27, 2003. Aliyah Muhammad Baker is the librarian of Basra, a port city in the sand-swept country of Iraq. Her library is a meeting place for all who love books. They discuss matters of the world and matters of the spirit. Until now they talk only of war. Aliyah worries that the fires of war will destroy the books, which are more precious to her than mountains of gold. The books are in every language, new books, ancient books, even a biography of Muhammad that is 700 years old. She asked the governor for permission to move them to a safe place. He refuses. So Aliyah takes matters into her own hands. Secretly, she brings books home every night, filling her car late after work. The whispers of war grow louder. Government offices are moved into the library. Soldiers with guns wait on the roof. Aliyah waits and fears the worst. Then rumors become reality. War reaches Basra. The city is lit with a firestorm of bombs and gunfire. Aliyah watches as library workers, government workers, and soldiers abandon the library. Only Aliyah is left to protect the books. She calls over the library wall to her friend Anis Muhammad, who owns a restaurant on the other side. Can you help me save the books? I can use these curtains to wrap them. Here are crates from my shop. Can you use these sacks? The books must be saved. All through the night, Aliyah, Anis, his brothers, and shopkeepers and neighbors take the books from the library shelves, pass them over the 7-foot wall, and hide them in Anis's restaurant. The books stay hidden as the war rages on. Then, 9 days later, a fire burns the library to the ground. The next day, soldiers come to Anis's restaurant. Why do you have a gun, they ask. To protect my business, Anis replies. The soldiers leave without searching inside. They do not know that the whole of the library is in my restaurant, thinks Anis. At last, the beast of war moves on. Aliyah knows that if the books are to be safe, they must be moved again while the city is quiet. So she hires a truck to bring all 30,000 books to her house and the houses of friends. In Aaliyah's house, books are everywhere, filling floors and cupboards and windows, leaving barely enough room for anything else. Aaliyah waits. She waits for the war to end. She waits and dreams of peace. She waits and dreams of a new library. But until then, the books are safe, safe with the librarian of Basra.
Great teachers are not because they tell you to do something, but because they lead you to want to do it and ignite your imagination and spirit for learning in a magical way. Blend compassion and passion. Bring out the best in each child. Walk with them. Open your heart. Greet them with your story. Receive their stories gently. Reveal vulnerability. Be a guide they need in each moment. Learn, share, create, listen, and hear, and speak in a voice only a child whisperer can.
Studio and write a song for a project that is very near and dear to me. And that person was none other than the Stacey Abrams, a person who was not optimistic or pessimistic, but determined to fight for marginalized voices, determined to fight against voter rights suppression. I was proud to vote for Stacey as governor, and I'm proud to stand with her and the people of Georgia. Here we go. The table's about to turn. I said the table's about to turn. Them tables about to turn. Yeah. Listen. I've been flipping through my timeline, trying to get my mind right. My city crying out. I got to cool down, but I'm under pressure. Cooking with my Crisco. Look at where my fists go. A renegade when I'm in a rage. I got to cool down, but but I'm under pressure. I keep my hands dirty, my mind clean. Got a new agenda with a new dream. We kicking out the old regime. Liberation, elevation, education. I said America, use a lie, but the whole world about to testify. I said the whole world about to testify. And we gon' wash them tables. Yeah, we gon' wash them tables. Just turn, turn, turn. That's right. We turn, just turn, turn. Ain't no stopping till we turn, turn, turn. We can't wait for it to just turn. Yeah, them tables gotta turn. Woo! Listen, it's a boomerang booming back. Yeah, you laid an egg, now it's about to hatch. Yeah, you gaslighting, about to meet your match. If you up the kitchen, then you should do the dishes. Burning down plantations. This ain't no parking, I don't need no validation. I like sage when I'm in a rage. I don't need permission, I got my intuition. I keep my hands dirty, my mind clean. Got a new agenda with a new dream. We kicking out the old regime. Liberation, elevation, education. I said America, use a lie, but the whole world about to testify. I said the whole world about to testify. Now we gon' wash them tables. Yeah, we gon' wash them tables. Just turn, turn, turn. That's right. Just turn, turn, turn. We waited too long, you gotta just turn, turn, turn. We see it all now. Turn. Yeah, them tables got to turn. Woo! Ha! We're in the middle of a revolution right now. And I'm proud to be a Georgia voter. We did this. Stacey Abrams, fair fight. All in the fight for democracy. Woo! Our fight continues.
Take a moment to switch glasses. I failed miserably with progressives, the glasses, not the people. So here we go. Yeah, so I chose that song for many reasons. First of all, the tables are turning, and turning fast. Janelle Monáe's song is a powerful message for us to consider and to respond. The challenges of systemic racism in education are here in York and in every school. From my perspective, each school and each country, for that matter, has some level of a caste system. I believe that we must acknowledge this before we can move forward with dismantling these hierarchies and the damage that they create. So, back to school. I heard that on the news yesterday, so they said kind of what I'm about to say. The words conjure up a spectrum of thoughts and emotions. School supplies and shopping and relief for parents and intensity for teachers. Edward Asner once said that raising kids is part joy and part guerrilla warfare. Raising kids happens at home and in our classrooms. And how is it that I'm here today speaking with you about education? I am grateful for friends like Molly and many others in this congregation. I also attended a UU church in Finksburg, Maryland for a long time. I'm grateful for 30 years experience in education as a music teacher and a librarian. Beyond my retirement from official teaching a year and a half ago, I find myself continuing to look for ways to teach and to contribute to education. Last winter, I learned that a film called Whose Children Are They? Was to be shown for a local group of political activists. I found myself with a group of people who probably have political and social beliefs that are quite different from those of us here today. The group also deeply values the education of their children. This particular film focused on ideas around education in the United States as part of communism or socialism, the damage of teacher unions, the total lack of discipline, the anxiety and depression that in their minds have resulted solely from the pandemic, an amazing misinterpretation of sex ed in schools, diversity distortions, and the resulting conclusion that a far-right Christian charter school is the best and only way to save public education in the United States. I stayed and listened and shared my thoughts and experiences about classroom discipline, a topic that was a lighter place to start conversations. Spirituality, religion, social issues, politics, and education have become so intertwined that it's nearly impossible to separate them as part of a civil discussion. One of the many consequences of the pandemic is that we seem to have divided ourselves into those who would prefer to keep conversations on the surface and those who wish to go deeper. This idea is supported by the fact that the movies Barbie and Oppenheimer were released on the same weekend last month. And so today we'll go deeper. One of the infinite varieties of teaching tools is called a No Wonder Learn chart. Today we will think about what is it that we know about education, what is it that we wonder about education, and what is it that we hope to learn and do about education. What is it that we know about education? Many people believe that their community is supportive and caring, and that these bad things we hear about on the news just don't happen to the people around them. Others realize that every community has its challenges, and that it is worth discussing the challenges specifically and how we might move forward. It has been said that we are drowning in information and starving for wisdom. We know that swimming through this seemingly infinite pool of information toward wisdom is an important step for each of us and for the children in our communities. Information is a crucial piece in our understanding of society. I recently learned that in the early 1940s, there were drastic changes made in history books about the United States in order to focus only on the positive stories. With this, the hope was that we could effectively increase nationalism and the resulting patriotism as a primary means to encourage more to enlist in the battles of World War II. This choice alone reminds us that education and teachers are perhaps the most powerful in affecting the behavior of the next generation, along with parents. The current censorship in our textbooks, curriculum, and libraries is based on fear. Just this week, I received a text that another dozen books were pulled from the shelves of the county where I worked in Maryland to be reconsidered and perhaps no more allowed to be read. The censorship is also a distraction from the more complex issues of parenting and technology that often have a far deeper impact on our children and teenagers. Schools are a mirror of society. Today's conflicts on the news are mirrored in our classrooms. On the morning after January 6th, I said, I don't think this will happen again, but I imagine that pop-up violence in various forms will increase, and I imagine that the school boards will become primary battlegrounds. Both of these predictions are happening. Our school boards have become a foundation of contention in our divided communities. Recently, a local group of school board candidates posted their list of intentions. One of these intentions is to avoid frivolous lawsuits. I thought about the number and spectrum of lawsuits and changes based on just the fear of potential lawsuits that I've observed in teaching that deeply and negatively affect the daily practice of education for all of our children and teenagers. We know that our deep divisions among education, wealth, poverty, race, ethnicity, ableism, religion, sexuality, gender, and more are a part of the daily experiences of our students. Language exemplifies how we attempt to divide our species: colored, Negro, Black, Indian, Native American, Indigenous. Sometimes language creates enough triggers that civil conversation is difficult or impossible. Diversity, equity, inclusion, civility, progress, any of these words today can immediately label or appear to label someone's beliefs. Under the words are the reasons for the changes. This is the important part to know and to talk about. Microaggressions and harassment happen on a daily basis and build over time to violence in all directions. Blame in all directions effectively avoids individual responsibility and forward movement. Students blame the teachers blame the students, the university blames high school, middle school, elementary school, parents, and around it goes. Students will have a spectrum of teachers. They will have a spectrum of colleagues and bosses and family members in adult life. Ultimately, beyond all the blame, learning is in the hands of the individual student. There is a choice in each moment about the degree to which we choose to learn. Adults can encourage the idea of choice as often as possible and can ask, what would the world be like if we were each responsible for ourselves? Bailing out a child or a teenager is the worst thing we can do for their future adult life. Any form of bailout is saying, I don't believe that you are capable. We laugh at the new names for parenting styles and recently watch parents debate expectations and consequences on television. We see the helicopter parents watching, enabling, and directing every move. We once had a helicopter parent actually try to break into our window, but that's a different story. Lawnmowers or snowplow parents clearing the way to avoid all potential challenges and stress. Militaristic parents wielding threats, fear, and demands. And the newest term, free range, to simply believe that a total hands-off approach is the way to go. These behaviors happen in classrooms as well, because teachers set expectations and consequences as they were parented. This is some of what we know about education. What is it that we wonder about? We wonder how all of this became overwhelming. I once heard, why be overwhelmed? Just be whelmed. Some days this philosophy works for me, and other days not so much. We wonder if we are not parents or grandparents, what impact do we really have on our children or teens or education, and why do we have to pay those school taxes? There are many forms of parenting. I was once told that as a step-parent, I would have enormous responsibility and no authority. It took me far too long to realize that this was true, and to learn that listening with deep attention and maybe a question or two was best. When I hear people ask about paying school taxes for other people's kids, I think of recent conversations that I've had with school administrators about whose children are they. A principal said to me, I asked several of our Black students how we should fix racism, and they didn't know, Val, so how should we? I exhaled slowly and said, it's not the job of Black students or their families to fix racism. White people created systemic racism in this country, and it's our job to fix it. In another conversation with a school administrator this past summer, we were discussing harassment of Black students in a predominantly white high school. Witnesses, or mostly no witnesses, willing to stand up for others, and effective consequences. At one point, she said, I think harassment is just human nature. I thought about this comment for a long time on the drive home, and I asked myself, just what is human nature? And how would I respond to her comment? It occurred to me that human nature seems to fall into three categories. It's all about me. It's all about me and mine, however we define mine. And it's all about everybody. It seems that if we are going to work through the challenges of our time, we will need more to shift to it's all about everybody, sooner rather than later. And now would be a really good time. She also said with a sweep of her hand, we just need unity. I thought about how many times I've heard that comment. We are nowhere near unity or democracy at the moment. And we have many steps to take together, from listening without defensiveness, to education curriculum expansion, to broadening our own experiences, and finding how we can generally work for the good of all. Speaking of the good of all, our global society encourages us to wonder about what other countries do with education and parenting and what we can learn from other cultures. In the library where I worked, I purchased a book called Parenting Without Borders. Teachers would borrow this book as a way to expand their toolbox at home and in the classroom. What is healthy parenting and teaching? What do boundaries and discipline and consequences look like in our homes and in our schools in 2023? Teachers are fleeing in record numbers. The reasons are, as most challenges are, complex. The reasons range from deep disrespect of teachers to near anarchy and apathy among students. We wonder what will draw and keep teachers and administrators to the classroom, most especially teachers and administrators of color. The degree to which a country values education is demonstrated by salaries. I've watched teachers quit because daycare is more expensive than their salary. I've watched them pay off their own college debt as teachers just before their own children enter college. I've watched them wonder if the reward of attempting to make a difference in the lives of children and teenagers is worth the struggle of daycare and college savings for their own children and the retirement savings for themselves. We wonder if financial literacy courses in schools are making a difference. Creating a vacation project at school is one thing. Not having enough allowance to replace their earbuds is another. My father recently turned 94, and he remembers to the penny the amounts that he saved for his bicycle and later to purchase his own car. He is currently driving a car with over 350,000 miles on it that is unable to tell him how fast he is going or how much gas remains in the tank. 2 generations later, at age 16, our Alex came home and said after a school finance project, "Val, how am I ever going to afford a house and car and appliances?" I assured him that I would get a toaster for him for his birthday and that we could talk about how to save for the car and the house. We wonder if, as in the movie I mentioned earlier, whose children are they? And if the recent pandemic is the primary cause of all this anxiety and depression that we see, or is it something deeper? We think about the ways we can move forward with mental health for all members of society, regardless of their life experiences. And yes, I probably just shared 4 or 5 homilies. And here we are, as a group of people seeking spirituality and growth and community. There are indeed things that we can learn and do, whether it's one small thing each day or a big thing here and there. Our experiences in life as individuals are valuable. Our words and our actions absolutely make a difference to the current generation and to the next generation. We can be overwhelmed and hope the next generation fixes things, or we can choose to talk to a local principal about the possibility of student-led parent-teacher conferences. This can move the common practice of parent versus teacher to a place where the student can introduce their teacher to their parents and then share their own work and goals. Our primary job as parents and as teachers is to show the younger members of our species what it's like to live a healthy adult existence. In some indigenous tribes, there is a philosophy that life is like a house with 4 rooms: body, mind, heart, and spirit. And that it is important to spend a little bit of time in each room each day. We can model this for our children and teens in our lives. We can read the book Last Child in the Woods and then take them outside for some nature, or as we sometimes called it, forced family fun. While hiking near the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon, our Alex turned and said to his dad, "No one informed me that there would be this much nature on our vacation." I swallowed my smile and we kept hiking. We can choose to listen without defensiveness or advice to the next generation, most especially listening to marginalized children and teens. We can ask what would be useful rather than just assume. That's hard for us sometimes. We can say, would you like to know what other kids or teens have tried, or would you like to figure it out on your own? And let them do just that. We can tell them what they can do instead of what they can't do, as they say on the Love and Logic parenting website, because they can't argue with what they can do. They can't argue with yes. Yes, we can go to Hershey Park next month. I can say what I will do. I will grade papers that are turned in on time. I only argue at 5 a.m. on Tuesdays. I will take you to the playground after you've cleaned your room. I will pay for your cell phone or the new reverse trend of flip phones, as long as you are using it in a healthy way. I can offer choices to you and put small decisions in your hands before you face many large decisions. It's a lot better to wreck the tricycle than to wreck the car. We can make the time once a week or once a month to genuinely listen to a child or teenager. We can volunteer here and there, especially in the chaotic times in schools in September and May. We can support school staff with a bit of time or mentoring, or we can add our voice to the astounding recent chaos of school board meetings, knowing that it's crucial that a wide variety of opinions are brought to these tables. We can create conversations, we can create courageous conversations about topics that are difficult in 2023. These conversations can be facilitated in a way to allow each person to share their opinions and to broaden the spectrums of belief that are often narrowed by a bombardment of media extremes. We can learn from the past, plan for the future, and live now. Most of all, we can live in the present moment, realizing that most progress happens there. Here in the present, we can listen to and respond to the challenge of education, and we can choose to move forward, individually and together. Thank you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For the sake of education and the health of the next generation, may we find our way to the present moment as often as possible, releasing, learning about, moving beyond the experience of the past and the fears of the future. May we be centered enough to engage in courageous conversations, most of all with those who see life and society differently than we do, deeply considering the challenges and the solutions for today. And then move forward together for our